Today we're going to talk about how, once again, CCW holders in the state of California were doxxed. We're also going to talk about how this is not the first time and it likely will not be the last. We're going to talk about the county sheriffs and their statements varying on whether or not they will or won't enforce California's SB2, which bans CCW across the entire state. And we're going to talk about whether or not it even matters whether or not your sheriff is giving out a good or a bad response to SB2. Now, if you live in the state of California and you are into firearms, chances are you have heard about various doxing issues. Now, me personally, I have been doxed by the state of California Department of Justice twice. Now, that's not a lot of times, but it is weird that it has happened twice. The first time was when I was working back in a gun store where I was a firearm safety certificate instructor. I was one of the many FSC instructors that were doxxed, unfortunately, by the state of California, and that's annoying. Granted, significantly less information, not a whole lot that they could do with the information that was given. I was a public figure in the sense that I was making content on the internet very clearly as a gun store employee, so it wasn't the end of the world. Now, the second time was a statewide CCW permit holder doxing debacle. Now, some people might be of the opinion and might publicly say this was totally just an accident by the Department of Justice. Personally, I disagree. I think that the California Department of Justice intentionally, or they had to, they physically made a website that made it so that you could click two buttons and download a list of every CCW permit holder, their name, their address, their driver's license information, a bunch of contact information. Where they lived is a huge point of doxing, and that is, personally, in my opinion, the name and physical address, the most important part of that dox. In addition to that, if you knew any amount of information about a specific person, you could figure out what guns they have purchased in the state of California. Meaning that if you had that list and you knew enough about me, you could potentially cross-reference that list and determine exactly what guns I own. I personally did that knowing all of my information, and it was pretty dang accurate. That was the second time that I was doxxed as a gun owner. Now, if you are a Napa County resident, you're going to want to pay attention. Basically, if you're a California CCW holder at all, you're going to want to pay attention. Napa County Sheriff did an oopsie. They did a little bit of an uh-oh. Now, they tried to respond to SB2 because many of their CCW permit holders were emailing the sheriff and asking about, what are you going to do? Will you enforce the sensitive spaces restriction, or will you not enforce the sensitive spaces restriction? They provided a fairly weak answer, in my opinion. I don't think that this answer is really going to satisfy either people on the pro-gun side or the anti-gun side. This answer basically boiled down to, we know that we have found guns in crime. We know that our CCW holders are very rarely, if ever at all, involved in any crime. SB2 is the law. We encourage people to follow the law. We will continue to monitor the law as it is to be enforced. And we understand where the big points of threats and violence and crime are, and we'll use our limited resource to continue to focus on those threats and violence and crime. They're not quite saying that they're not going to enforce it, but they're not saying that they will enforce it. It's just kind of this in-between answer that I don't think is going to really satisfy anyone. Now, in that email where they responded, they did not BCC anyone. So right now, I have, and I'm not going to show you on here, a list of every single CCW holder, their email address, and their first and last legal name in the state, in the county of Napa. All because they did not BCC anyone. Now, they sent up a follow-up email saying, hey, we've gotten some concerns that we let out personal identifying information. We didn't do that. That's not personal identifying information. Okay. Technically, they could be right. Personally, I disagree. I think that sending out a list of first and last names, the fact that they are a CCW holder, and a contact email address is personal identifying information. It's the person, it's a piece of information about them, and how to contact them. I personally view that as a breach of privacy by the Napa County Sheriff. That is something that can very easily happen to any one of you if you are a gun owner or a CCW holder specifically in the state of California. Your information is out around, floating around online. Your information is at the UC Davis Crime Research Center and whoever else they decide to share it with, because we know universities can always be trusted with who they share their information with. Now, let's talk about sheriffs as a whole in the state of California. Many county sheriffs in the state of California spoke up before SB 2 was signed and said, hey, we disagree with SB 2. It criminalizes people that are not a danger to society or themselves or anyone else. It is going to create a problem for law enforcement. It's going to create a distrust for law enforcement. It is not going to solve any crime. It is going to prevent people from protecting themselves. Many county sheriffs came out and said things like that. That's great. Many county sheriffs, since SB 2 has passed, have said, we will not enforce this law. We will not comply with the state of California's restrictions on concealed carry outside of the home. Now, that's great. That's cool. Personally, that means nothing to me, practicality-wise. Your county sheriff saying something does not mean that a random sheriff's deputy will follow that rule or that guideline that they're putting out, that unofficial guideline that they're putting out. Your local police department probably doesn't care. The CHP has gone on record, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if they've gone on record, but I've had people that I trust reach out to the CHP, and the CHP will be enforcing it. There are enough police officers in the state of California who will enforce SB 2. So personally, it doesn't mean that just because you live in XYZ County with a cool sheriff, that does not mean that you are safe. Because all it takes is one cop that doesn't like the Second Amendment or doesn't care and is just doing his job. All it takes is for one of those dudes to completely ruin your life, ruin your day, and ruin your ability to protect yourself, potentially put you in jail. That's why I personally don't necessarily care whether or not these sheriffs are giving good answers or bad answers, because at the end of the day, it simply does not matter. They can ruin your life simply by not wanting to break the law, because they could simply look away and not enforce it because you were doing nothing else. Now, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm simply trying to give you information so that you can make the best choices available to you. How you choose to live your life, completely up to you. I don't know how many more times and ways that I can repeat that I am not a lawyer. Concealed means concealed. If you want to stay up to date with SB 2, I recommend that you follow this channel. The CRPA is funding a lawsuit, May versus Bonta. Hey, that's my last name. Oh yeah, that's because I am one of the named plaintiffs in May versus Bonta, challenging SB 2. If you've made it this far and you have not seen my previous videos on SB 2, I highly recommend you check them out. You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.